Well, thank you guys for being online tonight on this super sunny, amazing day. I'm certain you're going to have some amazing information and insights and learn a lot from Dustin. So the official bio goes, so Dustin is a professional speaker, trainer, and coach with a passion and obsession for personal growth and development. Through his inspirational seminars, coaching, and online content, Dustin empowers people to live inspired lives. As a speaker and trainer, Dustin has presented to 25,000 plus people throughout Western Canada on a number of personal and professional development topics. Dustin guarantees audiences will walk away from his presentations, no matter how long or short, with actionable tools that can be used immediately in life and business to achieve greater success and transform the world. Dustin strives to leave his audiences uplifted and filled with a sense of empowerment. Dustin believes that in order to transform the world, we must first transform ourselves. Now you know why I get along with him so well. And for those of you who were at the last event that we did, he only spoke for 10 or 15 minutes and left everybody with some seriously actionable steps. So I know this will be absolutely no different. So welcome, Dustin.
Thank you. That was quite the official introduction. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Happy to be here tonight, everybody. Just talking about a topic that I think is so applicable to all of us, not just in growing our businesses, but really, in taking our lives to the next level. So I'm going to do my best this evening to bring my energy, to bring my passion, bring my excitement, and enthusiasm, of course, as well. So, feel free to kind of frantically take notes throughout tonight. If you don't want to take notes and you just want to sit back, that's okay as well too, because I will be providing a recording of tonight's session. So if you just want to kick back and take it all in, that works as well too. I know we all learn a little bit differently. So tonight's going to be a lot of fun. Really looking forward to it. So yeah, what are we going to do? I'll give you just a brief introduction. Georgie did such a great job that I'll just kind of gloss over that and share a few more things with you. Then we're just going to dive into it. We're probably 45 to maybe 60 minutes of teaching tonight. Like I said, tonight is all going to be kind of actionable strategies, not just, another hyped up kind of motivational session, but I wanted to make sure that tonight was designed that when we all left the training that, we had strategies, or you have strategies that you can be able to implement right away. And typically I would do Q&A at the end of the session, but because we're kind of a small, intimate group, if there are questions as we're moving through things, feel free to just jump into the chat. Feel free to just unmute yourself. Unless you're Carla, then I'm sure we can't hear from you, so I apologize for that, Carla. But yeah, if you have any questions, shoot them in the chat, and Georgie can read them off to me. And then at the end, too, I'll provide a downloadable resource guide that talks about a lot of the content that we're going to go over this evening, and then some. So I'll provide a resource and a download link for that. So just a little bit more about me. So I'm a passionate entrepreneur. I've kind of been a serial entrepreneur most of my life, even when I was working for another organization. Still very much entrepreneurial in what I was doing. My first kind of dive into business was running a landscaping lawn care business, actually, when I lived in Alberta 10 or 15 years ago, and really kind of built that up. But that wasn't my passion, and kind of, found some other different paths and some different, areas to dive into. And that's what brought me out here to BC. Very proud husband. Always love to talk about my beautiful wife. You can see the little photo of us there on the right-hand side on our wedding day. And the reason that obviously I want to talk about it because she's been such a support for me as, I've been building out kind of my businesses. And I'm sure we would all agree that as we're kind of building our dreams and building our goals, we've got to have those people in our corner that are really there supporting us in whatever way that they possibly can. So absolutely love my wife and love the support she's provided over the years. And like Georgie said, I'm a speaker, I'm a trainer and a coach. Actually, just in the last 12 months, I've delivered about 225 presentations to almost about 26,000 people now. So very blessed and grateful to be able to do that much speaking. Not all presentations are as good as the next one, which I'm sure, for those of you that are on the call tonight that have done presentations, that sometimes you hit a home run and knock it out of the park, and other times not so much. But being able to connect to audiences big and small is something that I'm very, very passionate about, something that I love to do. And I think in the future, I think Georgie and I will be talking about doing some kind of speaker training. So keep your eyes and ears open for that. So what are we going to talk about, and what are you going to learn tonight in the goal setting masterclass? Or we're going to learn a process, and we're going to go over a process, how to successfully reverse engineer your goals so you can grow your business and improve your life. And for me, once I kind of learned this process of starting and beginning with the end in mind as far as reaching my goals, it was a game changer. So I'm really excited to kind of share this process with you. And also too, we're going to talk about setting your week up for success. So not only do you get more done, but you're getting more done in less time with less effort. I know certainly for all of us, productivity and being as efficient as we possibly can is certainly key. So I'm going to talk to you about kind of a system that I use to make sure I'm getting more done and taking less time and putting in less effort to get that done. And then we're going to talk about this idea of dumb goals versus smart goals. So if you've heard of SMART goals before, just kind of raise your hand and wave. There we go. Everybody's waving. Yeah, we've all kind of heard the SMART approach before, which is great. Certainly nothing wrong with that. But once I learned about the dumb approach to setting goals, and then I combined that with SMART goals, it was like fuel on the fire. So really excited to share that with you tonight as well. And then finally, at the end, I'm going to share almost like a counterintuitive bonus step, which somewhat goes, in the opposite direction of a lot of the things that we're going to talk about tonight as far as goal setting goes, and also the traditional kind of education and theories around goal setting. But if I'm not throwing some curveballs and switching things up, it's boring. So I always want to change things up. So it'll be a kind of a counterintuitive bonus step. Before we dive into anything, and I know, Georgia, you'll probably like this, right? Especially when it comes to setting goals, or when it really comes to doing anything in our lives, we have to start with a massive reason why. Because if we do not have a big reason why we're doing what it is that we're doing, when things get tough and when stuff hits the fan, which tends to happen occasionally when we're pursuing a big goal, if our reason why isn't huge and massive, it's going to be much more difficult for us to actually keep moving forward when things get tough. So I always say, before setting goals, really before doing anything, starting with that massive reason why, and then from that why, creating something that I call an inspired vision. So what this is a document that I have, and I spent a kind of a weekend putting this thing together. And what it is this just overall beautiful vision that I have for where the direction that I want to take my business, but also the direction that I want to take my life. And it's written in very much kind of the completed stage. But what it does is it will put yourself in the mindset of having already achieved whatever it is that you want to achieve. And this is a fun little process that we'll talk quite a bit throughout today's session. And also too, reminding ourselves that we have to be our biggest supporter and to embrace whatever challenges that we're faced with. I always say that our biggest challenges are truly our biggest opportunities. And I'm sure many of us would agree that quite often something that's challenging, or if it's really difficult, if we can just persevere and persist through it, on the other side of that challenge is always an opportunity for growth. So the more we can do to get in communities like this and just support each other through those challenges, I think the more fun the journey is going to be, and the more likely we are to achieve whatever it is that we're setting out to achieving, and especially by committing to that long term. Right? I'm sure we've all heard of the idea of overnight success, and it's unfortunate. It's kind of a double-edged sword, this whole social media world that we live in, because it's allowing us to connect with each other. But then on the flip side, oftentimes we just see what seems to be an overnight success of somebody that's maybe going down the same path that we are. And I don't know about you, but for me, that can get me quite down at times. If I see somebody else that seems like they just started, or they're barely, making progress, and then all of a sudden they've got these massive breakthroughs. So rather than just getting down on that, committing to that long term, if it takes me 5 years or 10 years or 15 years to get to whatever destination it is that you choose, is that worth it? And I would say the answer is always yes. So commit to that long term. So here's a cool quote by Jim Rohn. And just as a side note, if there are any slides tonight that any of you like, feel free to pull out your phone and snap a photo of it. Nothing's proprietary. I'm not going to chase you down or anything like that. So this is a great quote by Jim Rohn that I wanted to share with everybody. Goals. There's no telling what you can do when you get inspired by them. There's no telling what you can do when you believe in them. And there's no telling what will happen when you act upon them. And to me, that final line, that is, where the rubber meets the road, acting upon them. We could come down with I could teach you the greatest, goal setting plan in your entire life. But if we're not going to take action on it, well, we're kind of wasting time and wasting effort. So I really think it always comes down to action. And kind of like you said earlier, Georgie, sometimes it's imperfect action. We don't always have to have everything figured out. We don't have to have the best equipment or this. Sometimes we just got to get started and see what happens. So tonight we're going to talk about the three pillars of powerful goal setting. So the pillar number one is all about setting dumb goals. So like I said earlier, I'm going to break this down and tell you and share with you exactly what this means and really how you can start integrating it into whatever it is that you're working towards and building towards. Pillar number two is all about reverse engineering your goals. So like I said, I'm going to walk you through kind of step by step this approach to actually reverse engineering your goals, and I think you're going to find a lot of value in it. Pillar number three is something that I like to call the Sunday success system. So this is what I mentioned earlier, setting your week up for success, setting that week up to be able to just go out there and accomplish whatever it is that you want to accomplish, whatever it is that you're going for. And then the final piece is a bonus step. So you got to stick around. I know, Lise, you've got to leave, so don't worry, there will be a recording, but we'll make sure to get that sent over to you. So pillar number one, setting dumb goals. So this idea of smart goals versus dumb goals. I love me some smart goals. There's certainly a lot of value in that, but I also think there's a lot of value in having different kind of philosophies and different approaches to pursuing our goals and really to kind of building our business and building our dream life. So let's do a little bit of a review of SMART, and then we can see how we can tie that together and combine that with the dumb goals. So first, specific, making sure that we're choosing a goal that is very, very specific. Rather than just saying, I want to get healthy, we could set a goal of maybe a certain amount of weight that we want to lose, or we want to go to the gym 5 times a week or 4 times a week, or exercise 3 times a week, whatever it might be, getting as specific as we can when it comes to actually using that goal or choosing that goal. I like the word dumb goals already. Yeah, me too, Lise. It's a lot of fun. So M, for measurable, making sure that we're choosing goals that we can actually measure. If I were to say my goal is to be healthier, well, there's really no way to measure that. I could eat 1 less Big Mac of 25 Big Macs in a week, and realistically, I am eating healthier, but that's not very, very, in line with the goal that I want to have. So making sure that it's something measurable. A stands for attainable. Now this one has always been tricky for me, but I like to think of it like this. If I set the goal of, let's say, climbing Mount Everest, it's possible. It's something that I could probably do, but for where I'm at right now, is it attainable? Probably not. So choosing a goal that is actually attainable for where you're at. And this really comes down to having that self-awareness and that personal clarity that can allow you to actually have an understanding of, well, what is attainable for where you're at right now? And then R ties beautifully into A, because is it relevant? So for example, if, as I'm building up my speaking business, it would make sense to choose goals that are in alignment with building up a speaking business. However, if I were to choose a goal of, let's say maybe writing a book, sure, that's perhaps in alignment with what it is that I want to do, but it's not 100% relevant to the actual vision and the path that I'm actually on right now for my business. So making sure that we're choosing goals that are relevant to where you are right now and relevant to where you want to be. And then T, making sure we're choosing goals that are time bound. Just saying that we're going to get healthier, but no deadline, no date. That is just, you know, setting ourselves up for a path towards disaster. So actually putting a date on it doesn't mean we have to hit that with 100% accuracy, saying that if we miss our goal by a month or 2 months or whatever it might be, but having that date on it, that puts a little bit of, you know, fire under our butt. And I'm sure for you, Georgie, when you did your live event there last month, prior to actually setting that date, the date was just kind of floating around, you know, in dreamland, until I think it was Matthew that kind of gave you a nudge and said, let's put a date on it. I see you nodding your head. So I'm sure as soon as that date was on it, it certainly propelled you forward. So I think it's critical for all of us to put dates on it. Not dates so we're going to be burning ourselves out and kind of going crazy, but just dates so we can kind of start moving forward. So that's a review of SMART goals. Like I said, nothing wrong with that. It's incredible. But what can we do to kind of take that to the next level? Well, we can take SMART goals to the next level by getting a bit more dumb. And I love this approach because I really think that it suits the Decide Your Life community so beautifully, because this is just such an amazing community of dreamers and people with big aspirations and big goals. As much as I love the SMART approach, it's a little bit clinical at times, which isn't always as inspiring. Whereas this, setting dumb goals, is certainly on the more inspirational side of things. So D, choosing goals that are dream-based. Choosing goals that are dream-based. So making sure that whatever goal it is that you're choosing is based on a big dream that you have. Because if you can choose a goal that's based off of a big dream that you have, you're going to be that much more inspired and that much more motivated to actually pursue this goal, because it is tied into something that you're dreaming of already, something that you're really inspired by, something that you're motivated by. Because like I said earlier, when things get tough, and I'm sure you've been there yourself, where you've gotten all fired up and ready to go, and then life kicks in, and all of a sudden that motivation that you had yesterday is no longer there. And if you've chosen a goal that isn't in alignment with something that you have a big dream towards, it's going to be hard to actually put in that effort. So first, D, choosing a goal that is dream-based. U, making sure that goal is uplifting. And bonus points if the goal is not just uplifting for you, but uplifting for those around you. Because if you can pursue a goal that will uplift humanity or uplift your community or uplift your family, you're going to be that much more willing to actually put in the effort. That's why I love, Georgie, what you're doing right now with your community, because that's a goal that, yeah, it uplifts you and it fires you up, but more importantly, the purpose is to uplift just an entire community of people. And really, to me, that's all about creating a legacy and that ripple effect of positivity that goes far beyond just what effort we can do individually. So choosing a goal that's uplifting. M stands for method driven. Now, I love this piece because method driven is basically, you want to choose a goal that you can set up a system that will be like a step-by-step process or a step-by-step system that will actually allow you to achieve that goal. So going back to my goal of, getting healthy or going to the gym, I can basically set up a system of things that I need to do, things that I need to follow as far as my meal prep goes, choosing the food that I want to eat, the exercises that I want to do, the number of times of week that I'm going to go exercise. All of these little pieces create this system. And then all I need to do to achieve that goal is simply to follow the system. There's a writer out there, a guy by the name of James Clear. And if you guys haven't heard of him, check out this guy's blog. He's got incredible content out there. And he always says this. He says, set goals, but follow systems. Because it's the system that's actually going to allow you to achieve whatever goal it is that you set for yourself. Quite often what happens is we set this goal and then we become so hyper-focused on just achieving that it can be a bit overwhelming. Whereas if we were to just focus on the next step, the next action you need to take in that system or in that method, that's just following that one by one, step by step. That's actually going to move you towards the accomplishment of that. So yeah, choosing a goal that you can be method driven. And then finally, B stands for behavior triggered. So choosing a goal that other behaviors will actually trigger you to put in effort. What do I mean by that? Going back to the trusty goal of going to the gym or getting healthy. So for me, I tend to go to the gym first thing in the morning. And even though I talked about morning routines at Georgie's event, morning routines are the most difficult time of the day for me because I'm just not a morning guy, but I know the power of it. So for me, going to the gym in the morning is something that I love to do, but oftentimes if there's all these little micro decisions that I need to make, any one of those can trip me up. So what I do is I set up little behaviors that once triggered, that actually creates this domino effect. So what do I mean by that? So one of the behaviors that I need to do, obviously in the morning, is I need to get my gym clothes on. I need to get those clothes, put my clothes on. I don't want to show up at the gym naked. So what I do the night before is I set out those clothes, my gym clothes, my shoes, right out by the front door. So as soon as I get up, the behavior of actually putting those clothes on then triggers me to take that next step, which is leaving my house and heading to the gym. So what you want to do when choosing a goal is if you can have little behaviors that will actually trigger you to put in effort, it removes you needing to actually think through all of the steps and actions that you need to take. And what that's going to do is that's going to build up momentum because you're spending less time actually thinking things through. It just becomes this beautiful kind of domino effect. So making sure that there's little behaviors that you can actually add to that goal. Like I said, if any of you have questions, jump into the chat. I'm more than happy to kind of stop and answer anything as we're moving along here. So once you've chosen a goal, you can ask yourself these questions to make sure that the quote unquote dumb certified. So to make sure that they fit the kind of the framework there that I just went over. So first, once you've chosen a goal, ask yourself, is this goal, is it in alignment with a big dream that I have? And if it is, great, that's good. You know, when the going gets tough, that you're going to be willing to put in that work, willing to put in that effort. But if it's a goal that isn't necessarily tied into a big dream, I'm not saying to not choose it. I'm just saying you might want to rethink it or see how you can adjust it so it is in more alignment with a big dream that you have. Next, do you get excited when thinking about pursuing that goal? And this is probably the most important question, because if you are not excited by the goals that you put down, there is no way that you're going to continue putting in that effort when things get really tough. We need to be our biggest cheerleader, and we need to be our biggest supporter, and quite often setting ourselves up for success. So making sure that goal gets us excited when it's down on paper, that is critical. Next, can you develop habits, either big or small, that will help you in pursuing that goal? Really, the results that we have are the result of the habits that we have. So just take a look at whatever results you have in your life that either you're happy with or maybe you're unhappy with, and then take a look at the habits that are surrounding that. It's really the habits that are generating those results. So when you choose that goal, just think about certain habits that you can set up that are going to allow you. So for me, right, going to the gym is one of my goals. The habit of getting up early and having a morning routine is a habit that helps me achieve that goal. So just thinking about the habits that you can set up. And next, can you set up triggers that are going to cause you to take action towards that goal? So like I said, setting out those gym clothes the night before. You know, having my journal, if journaling is a goal that I have, well, if that journal is buried, 3 levels deep in my work desk, probably less likely to actually put in that effort. So setting up triggers to make it easy on yourself to be able to take action towards that goal. All right, so we are moving along here. Any questions? I'm stuck on the concept of system. Yes. Chris, great question. I'm stuck on the concept of system. Does this go back to reverse engineering so that you always know your next step? Yes, so we will talk, or I will talk right now about kind of the reverse engineering process. And it's an interesting thing because setting goals and pursuing those goals is a bit of a science, and it's a bit of an art. Because as much as we can sit there and create a system and have it be step by step, life happens. So we need to be able to kind of go with the flow. But what I always like to say is setting up that system in the first place, getting as many steps down as you possibly can, going with the flow or working your way through those sequentially, but then also too being open to adjustment and being open to just going with the flow as things come into play. And you'll see here in a second, Chris, as I kind of articulate the idea of reverse engineering these goals, it's going to make so much more sense. So hopefully that answered your question. I see you kind of nodding your head a little bit, the thumbs up. There you go. Okay, cool. Perfect segue into the next section of the presentation. It's like I planted you there, Chris, so I'll send you your check in the mail. So reverse engineering these goals. We always want to begin with the end in mind. And once I shifted my mindset because typically what I would do, and I'm not saying that any of you have done this when setting goals, but typically what I would do is I'd say, okay, I'm here today. I know where I want to go. What do I need to do today that's going to get me there? And sometimes that works, but sometimes that's a quick path to like ripping out hair because it's such a big gap from where we are right now to where it is that we want to be. Where if we put ourselves into the mindset that we have already accomplished whatever it is that we set out, instantly we're already thinking bigger because we have to imagine and feel what it feels like to actually have that accomplished. So let me give you kind of an example here. So this amazing animation here that I paid $10,000 for someone to animate for me. Just joking. That's a joke. You guys can laugh. It's okay. We're here to have some fun. So yeah, we've got this little stick figure here. He's not man or woman. It's just a person. Let's say that. So we've got this person here. They've got their goals on the other side. You know, their house. Maybe they want finances in their business. They want to get healthy. Whatever it might be. So typically, this is kind of the path. We start from where we are. And then we just start trying to figure out, you know, the steps that we need to take along this path. We've all done this before, and certainly sometimes it has worked, but quite often it ends up leaving us feel like this, just kind of down, just kind of defeated, and certainly like it's causing a lot more stress than we really would like to. We know the goal that we have, just trying to fill in that gap of the steps that we need to take, that's where things get difficult, and that's where things are often more stressful. So we just kind of flip it around. So we begin from the goal, and then we start working our way back. And like I said, this is a bit of an art. It's a bit of a science, because like anything in life, we can sit here and we can plan those steps and think them through, you know, till we're blue in the face. But ultimately, once we get out there and start working on them, that's when life happens and kind of shows us the path. But just from a conceptual standpoint, this is what we would do. We would start with the goal, and then we would just slowly start creeping back and thinking about the steps that we think we would need to take to get us to that point. So let me give you an example, because then what happens, right, is once you've kind of back engineered or reverse engineered all of these steps, you see the very last thing that you've determined you need to do, you start there, and then all you do is you just kind of flip the arrow and flip the process like this. And man, it is a magical, magical process. It's inspiring, it's a lot of fun, and it really gets the job done. So let me give you a case study. So like I said, I've done a lot of speaking in the last few years, and my first kind of jump into speaking was I wanted to host my own workshops. I'd done a few little presentations at other conferences and on other people's stages, and that was fun. But at the end of the day, if you're speaking at a conference, not everybody there is there to see you, right? They're there to see the other speakers that are there. So that's fun. You kind of pick up, you know, a new audience, but at the end of the day, people aren't always there just for you. So I said to myself, okay, I want to start hosting my own workshops. Had no idea how I was going to do it. Chose the goal. The goal was the workshop. And then I think I set the date for 3 or 4 months later. I said, yeah, I'll be able to get 50 or 100 people there, no problem. I'd never done this before, so I really had no idea. And as I was kind of putting together the presentation today, because spoiler alert, the workshop was an absolute failure. It was beyond a failure. What I wanted to do today is I was like, okay, it would be great if I could show them a photo of this empty workshop. But then I realized I didn't have an empty workshop. I had no workshop, because what I needed to do is I actually needed to cancel it. So the only thing that I could find was the email here that I sent to the venue owner saying, I'm sorry, but I need to cancel this event. And the reason that I canceled the event wasn't because I had low registration. I had zero registration. 0 people signed up. My wife didn't even sign up. My mom didn't even sign up. They probably would have if I asked them, but you get the point. Nobody signed up for this workshop. And I was super defeated and deflated because I had this great idea. I thought people were interested in hearing what I had to say, but my plan and my path to actually making that workshop a success was completely wrong because I was doing the typical kind of goal setting. I set the goal and I was just trying to figure out the steps from today. And what I ended up doing is one day I would be working on the presentation and then the other day I'd be working with the venue, and I was doing all of these scattered things. So thankfully, I changed up my approach, and just 4 months later, the next first workshop that I did was a complete opposite. It was a smashing success. There you go. It was a full house. And I actually think Georgie was at this event. There's that blonde right up at the second row from the front. I think it was Georgie right up there. So this was, I mean, it was the polar opposite of that first attempt. Like, not only was this event full, like we were over capacity. I think you could fit 100 people in that room, and there was 119 chairs. The hotel was getting ticked off at us because we just kept asking for more chairs. The fire department, anyhow, that's besides the point. In this short amount of time, just the workshop content was exactly the same. I was the exact same speaker. It's not like I leveled up my skills. I was going to be talking about the same type of material. I was inviting the same type of people, but what had changed was in my approach and my path to actually setting and then achieving this goal. So what changed? It was 100% my approach. So really it comes down to reverse engineering your goals in 3 steps. So first, step 1 is choosing that goal, choosing whatever goal it is that you want to accomplish. And then once you've done that, this is critical. And this is, like I said, this is kind of the science and the art of it. And the reason that it's bolded is because it's the most important step. Because you want to determine and organize the steps that it's going to take for you to get from where you are right now to where you want to be. And that's the whole reverse engineering piece, which I'm going to explain here in a second. And then finally, step number 3 is once you've determined and organized those steps, you choose your starting point and you just get to work. You just start taking action right away. So this is an interesting thing to explain over in a video setting in a webinar like this. This is something that typically I would do in like a 1 or a 2 hour drawn out process. So just do your best to kind of follow along with things here. This may be the first time that you've heard of an approach like this. So if it seems a bit overwhelming, if you don't understand anything, that's okay. Shoot me a question in the chat and I'll try and explain it. But I just wanted to give you the best kind of overview I possibly could. So this is what I did. So here's the goal. So the goal was the 2 hour event. My process and what the process of reverse engineering your goals goes like. Essentially what I did is I said, okay, my goal is a 2 hour event. What I did is I sat down and I just did like a brainstorm brain dump for, I think it was almost 2 hours, literally thinking of every possible step that I would need to take, every possible action that I needed to take to make that event a success. I wasn't concerned with the order that I was putting them in. I wasn't concerned how big, how small, how medium they were. All I was doing for, I think it was an hour or 2 hours, is I was just brain dumping literally onto, it was either on a document on my computer or I was writing it out. So I'm going to do a mini version of that right now because obviously I can't fit hundreds of steps onto this page, but you'll get the idea. So what I did, I just started brainstorming. I'm like, okay, well, if I do an event, 2 hour event, well, I probably need a venue. Okay, that seems like something I'd probably do. What else? Well, if I create content for this event, I'll probably need to get some feedback on it. So, okay, that's something that I'll probably have to do. Well, I'm probably gonna have to do a bunch of rehearsals. I'll definitely need to do a final rehearsal. So this was something that came to mind. So I wrote that down. Well, if I want people to show up, I'm probably gonna need like a registration website. So I'll probably have to create that. Keep in mind, these aren't in a specific order. This is me just brain dumping. Okay, well, if I want people to show up and it'd be different than the 0 registrations, I'll probably have to market this event. Okay, that seems like a pretty big step, but that's something I'll need to do. I'll probably have to create some tickets as well, especially if I'm out maybe meeting people. I'll have to maybe give these tickets out. Well, hey, if I want to do a presentation, I probably need presentation content. So that certainly seems like a step that I might need. Probably going to need volunteers at the event. I certainly can't be the speaker and the door guy and the sign up person and all of this. So I'll probably need some volunteers. Oh yeah, I'll probably need a date that I'll actually do this event on. So that might seem like a step that I'll need to do. Okay, and then I'll probably need some slides as well too. So here, I've got 10 or 12 things on this list. Keep in mind, when I did this, there was probably close to 200 individual steps that I had, which is overwhelming, except for the fact that the next step you're going to take in this process is now actually organizing these and reverse engineering it. So if the ultimate goal is that event, you take a look at this brain dump, brainstorm list that you've created, and then you just start going through that list and saying, okay, if my goal is X, if my goal is this 2-hour event, what is the thing based on the list of steps that I've created? What is the very last thing that I would need to do before this event were to happen or this goal were to be accomplished? So just looking at my list over here, I'd say, okay, well, probably the final thing that I would need to do before that event is my final rehearsal. So I move it over to this list. Well, before I do a final rehearsal, what else would I need to do? Well, I would probably need to get feedback on that content that I'm doing in that rehearsal. Okay, so I highlight that, I move it over to this list. Before getting feedback, if I take a look at the list on the left-hand side here, well, I'm probably going to need volunteers for that event. So, okay, I'll move that over to this side. Taking a look at the things that are left, what else would I need to do prior to that, before getting volunteers, before getting feedback, before doing a final rehearsal? Well, I probably am going to need to market that event, because there's no sense in me doing a final rehearsal if I haven't marketed the event. So, okay, I move it to this side. Next, taking a look at the list of things that are left. Well, before marketing it, I probably need to create tickets so I can go out and market it. Okay, highlight that, move it over to this next side. Looking at the things that are still left on the left-hand side here. Okay, well, before creating those tickets, I'm probably going to need a website to send those ticket holders to. So boom, I create the website. That's the step that I need to take. Move it to that next side. Taking a look at what's left on the left here. Okay, well, before I create that website, probably going to need to create some PowerPoint slides to help me with that final rehearsal. But before I create those PowerPoint slides, on the left-hand side, well, you can see it says create presentation content. So I'm probably going to have to do that before I create those slides. Okay, now it's starting to make a little bit of sense. So 2 things left. Well, I probably need to choose a venue. So I'll move that over to the right-hand side. And then the final thing is I'll choose my date. Now, based on all of this brain dump idea, just of random things that I know I need to do, all of a sudden, now I know that this is the very first thing that I need to do before any of this. So that's exactly what I did. I chose the date from that event, and then all I'm doing now is I'm just sequentially moving through the process of these steps that I have reverse engineered. And like I said, when I did this, I had probably 200 plus steps that I then went and put in an order similar to what I'm showing you right here. But here's the thing, as soon as you start taking action, the action will then show you new steps that you need to start taking. And it becomes like this magical process, because you've got this, you've essentially created almost like a blueprint for yourself. And I don't know about you, but I'm very much like, I'm like a task-oriented person. I like step by step. And being able to see this in front of myself, when I was waking up in the morning and getting to work on building out this event, I knew exactly what I needed to work on. I wasn't scattered between like, okay, I'm going to create slides one day and then I'm going to work on the website the next. And then I'm going to, like, you're just doing it in this beautiful sequential way. And like I said, as you start then taking action, the process will then show you the next steps that you need to take. It's absolutely magical. Now there's this other process, something called the 50-minute focus finder. And write this one down. This is one of the most fun exercises you'll do. I can't take credit for it. It's a guy by the name of Dean Jackson, who is a marketing master when it comes to marketing really anything. So he's got this thing called the 50-minute focus finder. So what it is you choosing your goal, and then when you're going to go into that step-by-step process of doing that brain dump, doing that brainstorm, what you do is you're going to set 50 minutes on your smartphone or on your watch or whatever it is. You're going to turn off all other distractions. I mean everything. Email is turned off, text message turned off, smoke signals are turned off. Everything is turned off. You're just focused for 50 minutes and you're doing a brain dump. And let me tell you this, the first 10 or 15 minutes, it's going to be like this glorious waterfall of ideas that are just going to fall out of your head, because that's everything that's sitting up here, top of mind. But then all of a sudden, those first 10 or 15 or 20 ideas are going to stop, and it's going to feel like the fountain is turned off, and you're going to say to yourself, oh, that's it. Those are all the ideas that I have. But this is where you have to get a little bit uncomfortable. You just have to sit there in silence, because you're not checking Instagram or Facebook or your email. You're committed to 50 minutes. And now all of a sudden, deeper ideas are going to start bubbling up from deep down. And what you're doing for that entire 50 minutes is just letting all of these ideas come out onto the page. Let me tell you this process of the 50 minutes focus finder doesn't just work with setting goals. This works with any kind of creative process that you need to do, or you need to come up with ideas. And what I did is, when I did build out that event, that's finally that successful workshop, I think I did 2 or 3 iterations of the 50 minutes focus finder in a row. And by the time I got to that third one, I was sitting there for almost like 5 or 10 minute chunks where no ideas were coming out of my mind. And I'm just like staring at the screen like, okay, think of something else, think of something else. But then eventually, because you're committed to it, and because you've carved out this space, new ideas start bubbling up, and it's incredible what you can come up with. So like I said, I did 3 sessions of this, came up with 200 plus steps that I know I needed to take to kind of lead me towards that successful event, put them in the order that reversed that order, and then started at the bottom. And then once you get into action, life just decides to start showing you the next steps. So Lise, can't focus anymore. Yes, I think it's tough for a lot of us to focus these days. So what I would suggest, maybe don't start with a 50-minute focus finder. Start with a 10-minute focus finder. Start with a 15-minute focus finder, and then just work your way up. Because quite honestly, the first time that I did this 50 minutes, it was painful. It wasn't a lot of fun, because you come up with all of these great ideas in the first 5 minutes, and then it's just like crickets the rest of the time. But part of that uncomfortableness is actually teaching ourselves to focus. So my suggestion, turn off all distractions, start with 10 minutes, start with 15, and just kind of work your way up from there. That's typically what I would suggest. Great question though. So the big follow-up question that people say, well, what is the difference between tasks and goals? Because essentially, what you're doing in this, in reverse engineering it, you're coming up with a bunch of tasks, but you could also look at some of those tasks as mini goals. And I'm not going to get too, meta on it here, but it really just depends on your approach. But I like to say a goal is something that you want to achieve, and a task is a step. It's basically something you have to achieve in order to reach that goal. So essentially, the task is a means to an end. But this isn't, fully black or white here. You could consider a task like a very mini goal, but that's just the way that I like to think of it. A goal is something you want to achieve, and the task is the steps, or are the steps that you need to take to achieve that goal. Then the next piece is, well, how do you prioritize, right, all of those steps that you create? Even if you put them in the reverse order, if you look at that list and the priorities seem a little off, well, that's where this is more of an art at times than a science, right? You'll know in your gut which maybe needs more prioritization, right? I certainly don't need to be spending 5 days choosing the date, but I might need to spend 4 or 5 days creating that registration website. So in your own mind, just determining maybe where the priorities lie, getting an understanding, because you've chosen the goal. So you've got a general idea of the big things that you need to do to get towards that. But really it just comes down to looking at that list, going with that gut feeling, and going from there. And like I've kind of said and reiterated here is just start taking action and adjust your path as needed. Because here's the thing, that list of steps and action steps that I knew I needed to take, it was a living, breathing document. It's not like I did my 3 50-minute focus finders, came up with this list, and then went to Staples and laminated it and put it up in my fridge. That was like not what happened at all. I was crossing it out. I was coming back to it. But what it was, it almost became that map. I knew the destination that I needed to go to. Now I had, kind of like Google Maps, so to speak, of the path that I needed to take. But the reality is, even if you set up Google Map and there's construction going on, it's going to reroute you around where the path that it originally wanted to take you on. It's still going to get you to that destination. So treating these action steps as something that's living and breathing and that you're fine with crossing out and kind of adding things to, but just having it there in place is such an incredible piece that is really going to give you that confidence. And like I said, right, when I did that next event that was a packed house, nothing changed. The only thing that changed was my actual strategy for making it a success. The marketing was the same. The people that were invited, that was the same. The content was the same. It was just the path that I was taking to making that happen. So pillar number 3, this is a beautiful kind of piece that allows us to execute on everything that we've been talking about here, something that I call the Sunday Success System. So what is the Sunday Success System? So it is basically a 5 or 10-minute procedure or process that you can go through every single week that's not only going to set you up for achieving what it is that you want to achieve, but it's going to give you that confidence that you're taking action on the path that you know is leading you to the destination that you want. And the reason why it's so important is because as entrepreneurs, as business owners, does anybody here suffer from shiny object syndrome? Want to raise your hand? Yeah, I see all of our heads nodding, right? Because we're creative people. And that is such a two-sided coin at times. Because we're so creative is why we like to do the work that we're doing. But because we're so creative is why we're always like squirrel or looking every which direction. So really having this plan or this, what I call a system, just keeps us on track, keeps us motivated, keeps us heading in the direction that we want. So this is how it breaks down. And you can do this just on a sheet of paper. I just do this on a sheet of paper every Sunday, and it's very, very, very simple and straightforward. So first part is all about gratitude and review. So what you want to do is you just want to take a look at what happened last week, your results from last week, and just say, hey, what went well, what didn't go well, what goals did I accomplish, what goals did I not accomplish, just doing a little bit of a review to kind of see where you're at, see where you've been, and this is going to help you see where you want to go. Also too, I think this is critical for all of us, is to remind yourself of what was the best part of your week. So often, and I'll just speak for myself, I can get caught up in this achievement mindset of like, oh, okay, I gotta cross this off the list. I gotta move closer to my goal or my vision or my dream, without really stopping to smell the roses and just really allowing myself to say, hey, last week I really loved going on date night with my wife, or I really loved, this week it'll probably be, I really loved this masterclass with all of you. So just stopping and reminding ourselves of what the best part of our week was, because having those moments of excitement, that's really why we're doing the work that we're doing, right? To create that kind of internal freedom. And then also too, saying, okay, well, what happened last week? What was the best part? And what can I improve for the coming week? So maybe I was slacking on my morning routine. Okay, I want to improve on that. Maybe I was slacking, I was spending a little bit more time in email on social media than I really wanted to be. Yeah, Lise, I totally agree with you. It seems that time is going by faster and faster. It's kind of a scary thing, actually. So I think it's good for us to just remind ourselves to stop and smell the roses, especially in this social media. It seems like everything's disposable these days. It's like something that got 1 billion views yesterday is like dust in the wind. It's crazy how quickly things are changing. So thank you for that. So part 2, reviewing your inspired vision and your number 1 goal. So earlier on, I talked about this idea of creating and crafting this one-page inspired vision, which is really just a document that you're writing to yourself, talking about where it is that you want to go and what it is that you want to achieve, and just using that as almost like your ultimate destination, your ultimate roadmap. So if that's something that you choose to do, I usually review that once a week. I also tend to do it every morning, just briefly. It's not like it takes me 20 minutes to read through or look at it. It's just a couple of minutes. And then also too, if you've chosen like a number one goal that you're working on, I mean, I don't recommend working on, 5 major goals at once. 1 to kind of 3 seems to be the golden zone. But once again, that's just up to you and what works best for you. And then number 3. So what I'm doing is, and I do my Sunday success system, obviously on a Sunday, is I'm determining my weekly action steps. So these are kind of the 2 to maybe 5 major actions that I want to take this week that are moving me closer to accomplishing that number 1 goal and are ultimately moving me closer to accomplishing that inspired vision. And what I'm doing is I'm figuring out these steps, because then I don't have to think about it. I just know what I need to put work in on. If life shows up and I need to switch things up, that's all good, but I've determined those action steps for the week. And then I love lists. I'm sure many of you on this call love creating your lists and to-do lists and all that. Carla, I see you shaking your head. Yes, I love me a list. So just creating that list, and then I know exactly what it is that I need to work on. Also too, right, it creates that sense of accomplishment when we get to check something off of that list. That's always a good feeling. Whoops. And then calendarizing it. This has been a game changer for me over the last 2 years. And it's something that I've become religious with. If it's not on my calendar, it's not happening. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but this is something, and if you're not putting it on the calendar, if there's anything that you take away from tonight, it's this. And I mean calendarizing everything from date nights with my wife to meetings that I have to projects that you're working on, and really living by that calendar. It's not like you need to just be super rigid with it, but by having it on the calendar, that means it's going to be getting done. So Lise, you keep making lists and then don't take action on all of it. And that's okay. What I would say is make that list smaller so you take action on everything on that list. I don't care if it's a list of one thing, but just write that down, check that off the list, and then maybe add 2 to it tomorrow, or 1.5, or whatever it might be. Right? Like we've been talking about throughout tonight, is we have to be our own support system at times. And it sounds like you've got a lot of self-awareness. So, right, if you're not taking action on all of it, just take action on a few of it. So then you're accomplishing all of it, and it's going to create that momentum and kind of build you up. But great point. Thank you for that. And then finally, kind of the bonus is I will actually do a daily review and a daily plan. So it's almost like my daily success system. And this literally takes no more than 3 to 5 minutes. Like I'm not spending an hour on this every day. Usually what I do is I'll put on some inspiring music, some tunes rocking. I used to be a DJ back in the day, so I love me some upbeat music. So I'll get some upbeat music going on, kind of putting me in that mindset. I'll review the plan that I had for the week, and then typically what I will do is maybe I'll take those weekly action steps, and then I'll break them down into maybe 1 to 3 little steps that I need to take today. And what happens is these little mini steps, they're building up to allow us to accomplish the larger piece. So that's a Sunday success system. Love that one. But the glue that holds all of this together, everything that we've been talking about, is discipline. And Georgie probably knows this, but many of you are going to soon discover I am like obsessed with discipline and consistency, because without them, right, the glue is Georgie. True, Georgie is definitely the glue. She is definitely the glue. I would agree with you 100%. So this glue number 2, I would say, would be discipline and consistency. So Georgie can take the cake as number 1 spot. But if we're not being disciplined, and more importantly, if we're not taking consistent action, how are we going to expect to achieve the things that we want to achieve? And I like to say that discipline it's really doing what you need to do to get what you want, even when, and especially when you do not feel like it. And the last part is critical, especially when you do not feel like it. Successful people aren't just putting in work in their business or on their goals or on their relationship when they feel in the mood. They put themselves into action to then feel like they're in the mood. And on the other side, consistency is doing what you need to do on a regular basis so you get what you want. Right? If we're putting in inconsistent effort, we're going to get inconsistent results. So I'm not saying that being disciplined is easy, and I'm not saying that being consistent is easy, but if we can lean into, right, communities like this, we can lean into people like Georgie, right? People that will keep us on track. We're all kind of in this, together. So the last bonus step that I wanted to add on, and like I said, this is kind of counterintuitive to a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about, but it's critical because it will get you to think in a bit of a different way that will actually add fuel to everything that we've been talking about here. So this idea of actually keeping your goals to yourself. So typically, the theory is, or the teaching goes, is like you create this big exciting goal, then you tell everybody in the world about it, and then those people are going to keep you accountable, those people are going to keep you on track. And yes, there is a lot of truth to that. However, there is a lot of truth and actually scientific research to back up the opposite, which is keeping your goals to yourself. So if you have not seen his TED Talk, look up this gentleman. His name is Derek Sivers. And I believe the title of the TED Talk is Keep Your Goals to Yourself. So this is kind of how it goes, and this is the science. So what happens when we set a goal and when we tell everybody about it? If I set a big goal and I were to come on here and tell all of you about it, I'm sure for the most part, everybody here would say, oh, that's great, good for you, we're really excited, we hope that you achieve it. Everybody's going to give you a bit of praise when you share your goals with them, hopefully. If you've got people in your life that support you, they're going to give you praise, they're going to give you props, they're going to kind of cheer you on, which is a good thing. However, what happens in our brain when we receive that praise, when we receive that praise from other people, what happens is our brain is tricked into thinking that we've actually accomplished that goal. Our brain at a certain level believes that we've already accomplished that goal. So what ends up happening is we're actually now going to be putting less effort, less motivation into it because our brain has already received the result that it wants. It feels as if it has already accomplished the task that we had set out to accomplish, simply because we've received praise and we've received compliments from other people. So I, suggest, or you would love for some of you, the next time that you are setting a goal, rather than telling everybody about it, keeping that goal to yourself for a while until you've built up momentum. Because here's the other piece that's really exciting, is once you've actually started building up momentum and started making progress towards that goal, now, once you actually share that with other people, their praise, their excitement, their congratulations, that's now going to be fuel on the fire. And because you've got the power of momentum behind you, momentum is carrying you forward, their praise is now carrying you forward, and now you're going to be making that much more progress towards the goal. But the interesting thing happens is initially, if you haven't made any sort of effort or any sort of progress, that praise has the potential to slow you down. So this is something interesting to think about. Like I said, kind of counterintuitive to a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about. Mr. Derek Sivers with the beautiful haircut here, he does a great job of talking about that even deeper in his TED Talk. But I want to give you kind of an example of this in action. So I joined Toastmasters about 7 or 8 years ago. And for those of you that haven't joined Toastmasters or are a part of it, this is something you need to go do because it's an incredible organization for practicing speaking and communicating and all of these amazing things. So 8 years ago when I joined, I was so incredibly nervous to join and to give my first speech. But I knew that it was an important skill for me to develop. And I also knew that if I were to tell, or when I told my parents and my wife and my friends about it, they would be really excited. But for some reason, deep down, intuitively, this was before this TED Talk with Derek Sivers, deep down, I just had a feeling that if I were to tell other people in my life about this, that praise was actually going to slow me down. So what I did is, for the first 6, almost 9 months of going to Toastmasters, nobody on the planet knew where I was going. I just left the house every Wednesday night, told my wife, hey babe, I'm going out to work on music or something. And thankfully she's so trusting on me. She said, oh great, have fun, that'll be great. So I left the house, I'd go downtown Vancouver here, do my speeches, do my Toastmasters, I'd come home and nobody was the wiser. 9 months later, I sat my parents down, my wife down, and I just played like an hour worth of speeches for them all in one go. They're like, holy cow, when were you doing this? I'm like, well, I've been doing this for the last 9 months. And then I kind of explained to them this whole feeling that I had, and they're like, oh, interesting. And sure enough, once I did tell them about it, their praise, their excitement, their enthusiasm now was more fuel to the fire, because I had built up that momentum. I had built up that skill, and now it just carried me to that next level. So like I said, this is something to kind of experiment with. Every goal that I set is, I don't keep secret. Some of them I want to share. Some of them I just want to keep to myself. But this is a little fun little exercise and experiment that you can try in your own life. Okay, let's do a quick review, and then maybe we'll open up for some questions. So the 3 pillars of powerful goal setting. So first, remember, not just setting dumb goals, but now that you know this maybe alternate method, thinking about setting, not just setting smart goals, but thinking of setting dumb goals as well too. And using this as kind of that extra fuel on the fire to move you forward, making sure those goals are dream-based, that they're uplifting, that they're method-driven, and that they're behavior-triggered. This is just going to be that much more effective for you. Using that idea of reverse engineering your goals. Like I said, that 50-minute focus finder, that practice or that exercise, that's a lot of fun. And you'll be blown away at the ideas that will just start bubbling up, especially if you're committed to sitting there, from like minute 20 to minute 50, because that's usually the toughest time. You'll be blown away at what's actually going to pop up. And then finally, that Sunday success system. And like I said, you can use kind of the path and the system that I have, or you can just take parts of that and adjust it. Like basically what I've done is I've taken little pieces from other kind of journaling and, weekly plans that I like, and really made my own system. I've made it kind of personalized to me. And then that bonus step of keeping those goals to yourself. It's just something fun to try, and you'll be blown away at kind of the internal motivation that you'll get from it, because you want to tell people, you want to talk to everybody about it, but sometimes it's good to just keep it silent for a while. So here is the bonus guide that I wanted to make sure to give all of you, the ultimate goal setting guide. So this covers a lot of the things that we talked about here tonight, also talks about some other pieces. So this is the website here. Maybe Georgie, if you wouldn't mind writing that in the chat, please, that would be glorious. The rockstaracademy.com/goal guide. You'll be able to download that. Also too, because all of you have kind of registered for this, you'll start to receive some regular updates from me. So there's a lot of cool inspirational content that I love sharing there. Hopefully you could feel my passion and enthusiasm for the content here tonight. This is just, I think it's so incredibly powerful and critical for all of us as we kind of building our goals, building our dreams, our business, our life, these types of things, just having systems and different ways of thinking. So I just want to thank all of you for being here tonight. I know it's a sunny night here. Summer is sadly coming to an end, which is unfortunate. But that's the way it goes. So if anybody else has any questions, feel free to just unmute yourself, and I'm more than happy to answer whatever it is that you've got.
I got one.
Go for it.
First of all, I love the presentation because I'm amazed at how much of what you're talking about I already do.
Nice.
But the real kicker for me, the gem that I'll take away, is the value of sticky notes.
Yes.
That your brain dump it on sticky notes, and then you can move them around any way you want. So that I really appreciate. I'm still stuck on your dumb goals, this whole thing about method driven. I'm not sure how that is distinguishable from the concept of reverse engineering and brain dumping.
Yeah, so basically what it is I'm suggesting that when you choose a goal, whatever goal that might be, what system or method can you put in place that's going to make it easier for you to accomplish that goal? So for example, for me, I always use the example of going to the gym. So for me, the system that I have in place is I know the number of days a week that I need to go to the gym. I know the meal plan that I need to eat. I know the exercises that I need to do. I know the time of day that I need to get up. So all of these individual pieces then become the system that now, in order to just achieve that goal, I don't have to be focused in on get healthy, get healthy, get healthy. I'm just focusing in on following that system that I've set up. And in this case, I don't necessarily need to reverse engineer that. The reverse engineering process is something that I suggest for something big, like creating that 2-hour event. I mean, I could do like a mini reverse engineer of like, okay, I need to determine the days of the week that I need to go to the gym, the type of food that I need to be eating, and the exercises that I need to do. That's a pretty quick reverse engineer. Reverse engineer really comes into play when it's something like really big that it's overwhelming. Like just think of when they went to the moon back in 1969. They literally had to reverse engineer that whole process, which is crazy to think of, but that's exactly what they did. Is they just said, okay, if the goal is landing on the moon, what do we need to do before that? So hopefully that makes sense. They're kind of two, the dumb and the reverse engineering aren't separate. They kind of go hand in hand. So hopefully that makes sense, Chris. If it doesn't, feel free to ask and I'll go deeper.
I think what you just said suggests to me is, for example, if you want to live a healthy lifestyle, your method is a consistent, something that you do constantly, whereas the reverse engineering is about getting from A to B. I have one goal, I do it once and then it's done. Yeah,
and I mean, I could even reverse engineer the get healthy goal to just determine what those steps are, put them into my own quote unquote system, and then that's just what I'm following on a day-to-day basis.
Right. I think I get the distinction now. Thank you.
Cool. Clear as mud. Love it. Good question though. That's a really good one. Anybody else? Carla, do you want to write it on a poster or something, or? Discipline and consistency. I'll send you, I wrote a whole article on discipline and consistency, so I'll send that over to you, Carla. It's a good one. Thumbs up.
I think this was so great, especially the reverse engineering part, because I think, so often we hear reverse engineer, but honestly, this is the first time I've ever heard someone give a step-by-step of actually how to do it. Normally it goes exactly like you were saying. Oh, here's my goal. Here, let me just kind of imagine it up. But this 50-minute focus finder, I think I can't wait to try it. I'm like, oh, I want to do it. I can't wait, because I think that was incredible.
That's awesome. And what I was thinking, this might even be a good thing for us to do as a community in like an afternoon workshop or something like that, because the 10 minutes that I spent on it does not do it justice. And it's really something that has to be explained and then workshopped and then explained. So maybe, we could get some of the crew on board and do an afternoon workshop or something like that. I think it'd be fun.
Yeah, I think that would be
a very valuable piece. I totally agree with you, Georgie, that I've heard the expression used a lot, and I understand the concept, but to have it brought down to such a basic way of doing it, and honestly, it's so simple.
Yeah.
Sit there and you write things on a sticky notes.
Yeah.
And it's not rocket science. Like, it really isn't rocket science.
Exactly. It's kind of mind-blowing, the simplicity of it, right? Doing the actual work is another piece, but getting it all on paper is pretty confidence boosting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's great.
So good. And
cool.
Of course, and I love the dumb goals. I was like, oh my God, these are genius. I love it.
Oh, that's great. And yeah, I can't take credit for that either. It's one of my kind of idols and mentors, a guy named Brendan Burchard, which some of you may have heard of. He kind of brought that concept to the forefront. But I think it's nice because it's not as clinical as SMART goals can kind of be. It gets you thinking about big dreams and the fun stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. I think what they do is they connect the emotion into it.
Exactly.
It's almost like the left brain, the right brain. The smart goal is very left brain, and the dumb goals are very, very right brain.
Yep.
Yes.
That's exactly. Cool. So yeah, like I said, I'll send everybody the recording of this. So if there's anything you need to go back and listen to a couple times, and like I said, if there's any questions or whatever, just shoot me an email. I'm more than happy to keep the conversation ongoing. And I'm sure I'll see many of you at upcoming events and that type of thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
I actually booked a venue and date today for September 27th. So there will be an event happening September 27th.
27th, it's going right into my book.
Yes, excellent.
It's right after the day of our 10K.
Yeah, it's my birthday too. So woohoo!
Put it in my calendar too.
Right. It's gonna be awesome.
That's great. Cool. Well, thanks everybody for being here.
Thank you, Dustin. This was awesome.
Thank you very much. This has been really helpful because sometimes you need to get confirmation that you're on the right track. And that whole piece about the reverse engineering has been just worth it for sure.
That's great.
Yeah,
well,
I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Carla. You're here in spirit. We can read all your messages. So that's awesome. Cool.
Okay.
Awesome.
So thank you very much. I'm going to sign out and I'm going to go to sleep.
Nice. Have a great day. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dustin. Thanks, Georgie, for getting this going. And hopefully we'll see you, Dustin, in an event sooner rather than later.
You will. Well, thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.